This week's radio talk is dedicated to my beloved mother, HaRabbanit Tzirel, Bat HaRav Eliyahu, Zichrono Livracha, whose 7th Yahrzeit is this coming Thursday, the 27th day of Marcheshvan. My mother was an outstanding woman who emigrated to the United States from Lithuania as a young child, pre-war. She excelled in her studies, graduating Phi Beta Kappa from NYU and later earning her MSW from Yeshiva University. She was a true Ezer Kenegdo to my father, raising a beautiful family and enabling him to dedicate his time to learning Torah and serving his community and the Jewish people at large. She helped hundreds of people as a social worker and placing young children with loving adoptive parents. In her later years, after my father's passing, we were fortunate that she made Aliyah and spent the remainder of her life here in Israel. She is very missed and will always be remembered. May her precious soul have an Aliyah, and may she continue to be a Melitzat Yosher for her family and Klal Yisrael. In this week's Seder Chayei Sarah, we read how Avraham Avinu tasked Eliezer with an important mission to find an appropriate match for his son Yitzchak. Eliezer departed on the journey to the birthplace of Avraham, to Aram Naharaim. When he arrived at the well outside the city, he prayed that Hashem assist him in his quest. Eliezer decided that the young woman, whom he will ask for a drink of water, and will not only respond positively, but will also ask to provide water for the camels, she is the one destined for Yitzchak. Sages in the Gemara Tanis 4 were critical of Eliezer and counted him among those who had improperly beseeched Hashem. The Rambam in Hilchas Avodah Zarah, chapter 21, based on the sages in Chulin 95, states another criticism of Eliezer, that he practiced divination, magic, sorcery. One is not permitted to determine a course of action by saying, for example, I would do such and such if the fourth person walking into this room is wearing a green shirt. The Rambam explains that since Eliezer was a ben Noach, sorcery was not forbidden to him. The Ravid asks, how can one possibly think that a righteous person on Eliezer's level would stoop to using such an illicit method, even though technically permitted? The Kesef Mishnah cites the Ran in Chulin, who states that forbidden divination is only when one gives a foolish, irrelevant sign to portend the future. However, Eliezer gave useful, meaningful signs by which to assess a course of action. Eliezer, with his sign, sought to determine whether the young woman would be an appropriate spouse for Yitzchak. Is she worthy to take Sarah's place as a matriarch? However, further clarification is needed. Avraham took Sarah as his beloved companion, but we don't find that Avraham had tested her prior to marrying her. Did Avraham test Keturah or Hagar? Did Yaakov give an exam to Rachel? Certainly not Leah, and also not Bilhah and Zilpah. So why did Rivka have to undergo such a test? The answer possibly is that Avraham and Yaakov, with their Ruach HaKodesh, were able to assess the character and soul of their spouses. However, Eliezer had to rely on a test. Additionally, since Yitzchak was different, he was a pure Olah. He underwent the Akedah. He was the Pachad Yitzchak. He was the personification of Gevurah, strength. He therefore required a spouse that personified Chesed, kindness, to balance out his strong Midah. Therefore, Eliezer had to find a woman that was distinguished by her kindness. With this test, Eliezer was convinced with certainty that Rivka is the benevolent one who perfectly balances Yitzchak. With elation, Eliezer went to the family of Rivka for their consent and to close the deal. He told her family about Avram's wealth and of his mission secured by an oath to act honestly. Eliezer also recounted how he had asked of Avraham, Ulai lo selecha isha acharai. Perhaps the woman will not follow me. Avraham assured him that he'd be successful. However, if the woman does not want to go with him, he, Eliezer, will be free of his oath. Interestingly, Rashi points out that we read the word ulai lo selecha isha. However, the word ulai is missing a vav and can be read as elai, to me. We learn from this that Eliezer had some self-interest. Eliezer had a daughter, and he was seeking the possibility that Avraham would do a deal, a shidduch, for Yitzchak to marry his daughter, in case the woman refused to go with him from Aram Naharaim to Eretz Yisrael. However, Avram told him that this is an impossibility, as my son Yitzchak is a blessed one, and you, Eliezer, are a Canaanite. You are cursed as a grandchild of the one that Noach had cursed. A cursed one cannot marry a blessed one. All ask, why did Eliezer wait until recounting the story to Rivka's family to mention his desire to be in-laws with Avraham? Previously, when he had asked the question to Avraham that perhaps the woman won't go with him, the word there is Ulai lo soveh hayisha. Ulai is written with a vav, and one cannot possibly read it as Eli, to me. The answer is that earlier, before he embarked on his mission, Eliezer assumed that, of course, there in Aram Naharaim, the in-laws, quote-unquote, were more fitting. If they are the relatives of Avraham, they must be tzaddikim. So how, indeed, could he think that Avraham would make a shidduch with him? However, when he saw these in-laws, Lavan and Besuel, the thought resurfaced in him that I am finer and better than they. I am, after all, the elder of his household, Skan Beso. I am, after all, the domestic Eliezer, the one who draws and gives to drink to others of the teaching of his Rebbe Avraham. I would have been a finer in-law. Rav Avram Yeshua Heschel of Brezin, Zecher Tzadik Levracha, in his Sefer Drisha Shabbos, answers that when Eliezer heard how Lavan called out to him, "Come, O blessed of Hashem," he then justified his thinking that he could be the in-law. Why did Avraham tell him that my son Yitzchak is blessed and you, Eliezer, are cursed, and the two cannot join each other? But I am also blessed. Lavan greeted him, "Come, the blessed of Hashem." I am also blessed, and it could be a very good shidduch. However, Eliezer did not understand that it was not important that Lavan called him blessed. What is important is that Avraham must call him blessed. There are today in Jewish life leaders, organizations, and institutions that receive their imprimatur and recognition from the Gentiles. The "Come, blessed one of Hashem" of Lavan is for them the highest authority. Many of them pretend to play great roles because they are prominent in non-Jewish circles and high governmental bodies. However, what is important is to hear and to have the goodwill, approval, and blessing of the Jewish people. Eliezer brought Rivka to Yitzchak, and Yitzchak brought her to the tent of his mother Sarah. Rashi states that he found in her a representation of Sarah. He saw that by her, just as by Sarah, the candles stayed lit from one Erev Shabbos to another. That blessing infused the dough, that a glorious cloud was connected and upon her tent. And he took Rivka as a wife, and he loved her, and Yitzchak was consoled after his mother. Rashi states that as long as one's mother is alive, he is attached to her. Once she dies, he is comforted by his wife. Many ask, at this time, Yitzchak was 40 years old. Was he still attached to his mother? Rather, it shows that a mother is a mother and a child is a child at any age. However, 3 years had passed since Sarah died. Was Yitzchak still in mourning? There are limits to mourning periods. Shiva, Shloshim, a year. How could he observe mourning for such a long period? We also don't find anywhere else in the Torah that a wife consoled the loss of a mother. The answer is that Yitzchak is different, for he felt guilty for his mother's death. Sarah died when she heard about the Akedah. This plagued Yitzchak until he saw the return of the Shekhinah, the divine presence, and blessing in Sarah's tent upon the arrival of Rivka. We had an Akedah of 6 million Jews, and despite more than 80 years passing, nevertheless, many, especially American Jewry, carry a feeling of guilt that we did not do enough to save them from the destruction. We didn't know. We relied on leaders, sweet talkers. We didn't make a commotion. We were silent. We will never forget the Kedoshim. However, we now see the revival of Eretz Yisrael, the growth of yeshivos and kololim, the spread of Balei Tshuva, and the proliferation of youth who are observers of Torah and mitzvos with deep learning and Hasidus. The Alta Haim, the old home, is still here. It evidences the return of the Shekhinah, and he was comforted after his mother. Shabbat Shalom.